Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is facing scrutiny after revelations that he has accepted gifts in hospitality totalling over £100,000 since becoming Labour leader in December 2019. According to the Sky News' Westminster Accounts Project, this figure makes Starmer the MP with the highest value of such benefits during this period. The majority of these benefits include tickets from the Premier League, which has been a significant donor of hospitality. As an avid Arsenal fan, Starmer has received nearly £40,000 in tickets. Additionally, he has accepted other notable gifts, including clothing from Lord Wahid Ali, valued at £39,122, and various hospitality events from football clubs and other entities. The disclosure comes at a sensitive time as discussions around implementing a football regulator are ongoing. This has sparked debates over a potential conflict of interest, given Starmer's acceptance of hospitality from football-related entities. Critics argue that such gifts could potentially influence policy decisions, particularly concerning football regulation, a move that many clubs oppose. Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by our Downing Street correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, so Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is in hot water this week. Westminster Accounts has been sort of a private investigation that's been going on for several years now, but his name has cropped up. In fact, we've discovered that he has taken over £100,000 worth of freebies since 2019, more than any other British lawmaker. And I suppose some people are saying slightly hypocritical. For years, on the opposite side of government, he was accusing the Conservatives of being sleazy and all that jazz. But really, he's been up to it too. Or can we not say he has?
Well, I think there is a bit of a difference. I think the optics do not look good. And I think that's the main point, is that for years on the opposite side of the benches, and the Labour Party as well, been accusing the Tories of sleaze and corruption and COVID contracts and fast lanes and VIPs and wallpaper in Downing Street, and it's been on and on and on. And so he needs to be whiter than white. He needs to have there needs to be nothing to stick to him. I think you can separate really those sort of Boris Johnson years, and you can separate Rishi Sunak's hundreds of millions, billions of pounds. Nothing that he's taken himself, but there's been ways that maybe his wife has financially gained, and tax breaks and things like that. This is nothing in comparison. But it is worth pointing out £107,000 worth in gifts, benefits and hospitality since 2019. That's far, far more than any other MP.
Wow.
One member of the government calling the situation nuts and saying that this should be banned. So I think it is quite hard for him to say, oh, that this is nothing, when actually for years he's been complaining from the other side. It does look like it's hypocrisy.
Taylor Swift tickets, £4,000.
Yeah, let's talk about what he's been given. So Waleed Ali has given him the equivalent of £39,000, nearly £40,000, and these are sort of work clothing.
For his wife too.
For his wife, lots of tickets to football. And this is the one thing he's responded about this, which I think is fair enough. He says, I can't go and sit in the stands. I can't go for 50 quid, right, and sit in the stands because it's a security risk. We've seen what politicians are, the kind of dangers that they face. True. So I need to get a box, or I need to be in some kind of hospitality.
He could pay for it.
He could pay for it himself, exactly. But anyway, so he's saying that it's about his security requirements, and fair enough for him to go to some football games. I think it's just the scale of this which doesn't look great. And like we've been saying, the Labour Party and he in particular has been accusing successive Conservative prime ministers, former prime ministers of doing similar. Boris Johnson, let's just go over him. He had a £15,000 holiday paid for him by a guy called David Ross, £12,000 party, and then after leaving office he declared more than £100,000 of free accommodation. So it is a kind of thing that prime ministers do, right?
The perks.
But I think the main thing, and he's saying that there's no conflict of interest here, Keir Starmer, but it is worth pointing out that the Premier League is lobbying against having a football regulator, and so for him to go and accept tickets to Arsenal games or to Wembley, to go to Taylor Swift concerts that are given to him by the FA, that is a bit of a conflict of interest potentially. So that's something that maybe he needs to watch out, because he does like his football, and the Premier League are having, they may have a regulator in put in place, and they don't want that. So I think also the optics just before the Labour Party conference may not be a coincidence. This may have been drummed up by people who want to cause a bit of, to stir the pot a little bit before the Labour Party conference in a couple of days' time. There's other stories as well sort of coming out and doing the rounds. I don't think this is anything too scandalous, to be honest. And I think this is quite a UK story. If you're sitting outside of the UK, if you're living in China or something, or America, you're looking at this and we're talking about £100,000. This is kind of small fry to most countries.
Yeah.
And this, but I think this is a good thing that we're talking about this, because it means we hopefully don't live in that corrupt country that we're talking about. Freebies, it's not necessarily money that's going into his account or anything like that. And it's worth pointing out, that the salary that the Prime Minister gets, which is a lot compared to many people in the country, but compared to many people who work in the private sector and the public sector in similar jobs, a lot of
far
people
less
earn much more than the Prime Minister. So I guess that's partly why.
Absolutely, but does it give us insight into his personality and whether or not we can trust him? As you said, he's got to be whiter than white, but it's like, well, you're actually not. And why does your wife need a wardrobe?
Well, there's two ways to answer this, aren't there? One is that the reason we're talking about this is because it is transparent, is because it has been declared.
It has been.
And they're going through the right processes. It's not like he's trying to hide anything here. But the other side of it, talking about his personality, he has talked a lot about, Tory sleaze and about
empathy,
doing things by the book. We've talked before about how this Labour Party doesn't seem very Labour, right? This seems also like, and he's following a succession of Conservative Prime Ministers and doing similar, actually doing a lot worse in terms of these freebies are a lot more than they had. So it's interesting, isn't it? I think if I were in Labour, if I was advising him, I'd be saying, just think of the optics, think about the last 12 years or the last few years that you were leader of the opposition, what you were talking about with Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and try and put yourself in those shoes. Try and put yourself back in the shoes that you were in when you were criticising them, because this doesn't look too good.
Absolutely. Or put your money in your own wallet.
There we go.
Pay for it yourself. Pay for your own Arsenal box. Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you.